Greetings, everyone. We are recording on Sunday, June 20th, 2021, and I'm your host, Sean. Joining me today are co-hosts Zach.
Hey, everyone.
And Rob.
Hey.
You're listening to episode 8 of the 4for4 podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we take a deeper dive on 4 select shows from the current anime season and discuss them in 4-episode batches week by week. This week, we're continuing coverage for episodes 5 through 8 for the anime Odd Taxi. Before we get started with the discussion, I just want to say and reiterate, like from last time we discussed Odd Taxi, this is a very dense show with a lot going on between the main scenes and a bunch of little scenes in between them. I feel the need to adhere somewhat strictly to the continuity of what's going on in these episodes, because, as I said last time, it's so easy to miss so many small things in this show. And not only do I want to bring attention to some of those details that will end up being important later, I also frankly just want to keep to this continuity so I know what the hell's going on. So forgive me if I get a bit wordy or I kind of take the reins from what I would describe as more organic or natural discussion, because really I want to make sure most of these details are not being missed so things can remain relatively coherent. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
I mean, let's be honest, this show is very rich in detail and so much information is condensed in every episode that we run the risk of brushing off some what may appear to be a very minor event that will have major consequences and sets other things in motion that you wouldn't know like on a first watch. So yeah, I second your viewpoint, and I'm sure Rob, you would agree that it's kind of the best approach to have with this show.
Absolutely. There's so much to digest with this show. It's going to get to the point where you're going to loosen your belt and unbutton your pants after you're done because you're just so full.
Yeah, and again, the last thing I want our show to be is like, here's the Cliff Notes version of what you just watched. Like, I don't want that. I do want there to be discussion, but this show, it's difficult. But with that being said, with that disclaimer out of the way, once again, I'm going to try keeping it as discussion focused as I possibly can. But if I do have some of those run-on moments where I'm just talking and talking, please bear with me because I'm trying my best here. So let's move on to episode 5. In this episode, we begin with Yamamoto, the Fox character, the manager of the group, Mystery Kiss, and we see him calling and asking where Mia is, so the Black Cat character, and is saying that a lesson is starting soon. And this is where he also waves his hand for a taxi, and who, of course, but Otakawa picks him up. So next we see Mia in the car. We know she likes fried chicken, and of course he gives her some fried chicken, also making the comment, though, if you gain 5 kilograms, then you're fired, or something to that effect.
Idol industry, am I right?
Idol industry. And she says it's her soul food. And he asks about this, what's soul food? Because it's some English phrase. And she says she doesn't know. It's just a feeling. Probably an innocuous detail that doesn't mean much in the end, but I like it. Otakawa drops her off. Then he's directed to pick up Ichimura. So Shio, the one that Kakihana, the monkey character, is in a relationship with, I say in air quotes. Otakawa recognizes her when he picks her up, which makes Yamamoto suspicious because he says, if you recognize her face, you must have come to a concert before she debuted. She keeps her face hidden. So this makes him suspicious. And next, when she's lamenting about her talent or supposed lack of it, Yamamoto says her unique traits are being charming and innocent with having a cute face. But then she counters, well, why am I always wearing a mask then? And this is where he makes kind of a shitty deflection, and then she's dropped off. And then this is where we kind of get to the meat of this scene, where Yamamoto next directs Otakawa to their office in Kamimeguro, which is being tailed by Tanaka. So just to take a step back, from episode 4, Tanaka is the character who believes his life was ruined by Otakawa because of the whole issue with the dodo. And now we're seeing him tailing Otakawa from behind in another taxi. So he knows Otakawa's location. He's being followed in another taxi. Oh, and I do want to call attention to one other detail. If my memory is serving me correctly, the Black Cat character, she actually wedged her phone in the seat, which comes into import later. So I'll call attention back to that. But they're being tailed by Tanaka. Yamamoto, again, the Fox manager character, he refers to Nikaido as a pure carbon gemstone. So she's the lead idol of their group. And he feels the need to put the other girls at her side to make her shine brighter. So he's purposefully taking these two other girls, the ones in the masks, and he's kind of taking their mediocrity and positioning it next to the main talent to just make her look better. That's his strategy anyways. So he asks for Otakawa's business card, as he seems tight-lipped and needs a normal driver for them, and also wants to use him to advertise for their group. And then that's where we see Otakawa mention knowing where the agency office is, remarking that he once drove a girl there, which again captures Yamamoto's attention. And Otakawa says it was about 2 weeks ago. Yamamoto deflects, saying it was probably one of the girls you drove today, referring to Ichimura. But referring to Ichimura, Otakawa remarks that she's a calico cat. The other girl was a little different, referring to the one from 2 weeks ago. And Yamamoto is alerted at this and wants Otakawa's recording data and reasons that it'd be interesting to include candid shots of the girls in their next preview. Of course, Otakawa knows immediately what's going on now that he's asking for the data.
Bullshit.
Yeah. And Otakawa says he'll consider it when the privacy issues are sorted out, but again, reiterates he's just not that interested. And then we conclude that scene between him and Yamamoto. But also right afterwards, Tanaka's dropped off at a nearby location, one we can assume that Otakawa stopped nearby. And he looks at his phone to pretty ominous music revealing Otakawa's location on his phone.
That was very, very intimidating music. And
and his expression.
For the first pickup for that idol, she was in a black taxi, which is the taxi that is currently tailing Otakawa, and she purposely leaves a phone in there. Yeah. So that is how he's able to follow Otakawa.
Yeah, exactly. She leaves her phone in Otakawa's taxi because at first Yamamoto told Otakawa to pick her up. And then right before she leaves the taxi, she wedges the phone in the seat. And that's how Tanaka is tailing Otakawa so accurately from this point, because that phone's wedged in his seat. So and that reveals to us... No, that's all right. I'm just saying that reveals
I really got to talk about when the manager was asking about, the recording and everything, about how great Otakawa's deflection was.
Yeah.
And then that particular scene where it shows the actual cam in the taxi of their exchange in that, really that was shot. A fantastic scene.
Yeah, I agree. And really, I mean, that kind of went over the whole scene. I thought it was pretty lengthy, again, pretty dense, tons of small details being thrown out there. But what really stuck out to me was her wedging the phone in that seat, because that's one of the subtlest details from this stretch of episodes. Not much attention is called to it before or since, but we see Tanaka looking at that phone, and there is that shot of it wedged in the seat right before he looks at it. So that tells us there's a connection between Tanaka and that girl. So regarding that and just that entire scene in general, what do you guys think?
I mean, I think it was brilliantly directed. I mean, it takes up the first half of the episode, so there's a lot to chew on. But with that being said, it serves a lot of key elements. I mean, one, we get to kind of understand how the two side characters in the idol group, quote unquote, the ones wearing the masks, the side characters, how they're feeling behind the scenes. I mean, they both feel inadequate in their roles. They feel like they're not either living up to their potential, or they feel like it's being wasted doing this. Like their heart's not all in there, or if it is, it's they don't have the drive, the same level of drive that the lead does. But obviously, as we alluded to with the Calico Cat, like her wedging her phone in the seat, clearly
that was actually the black cat, Mia.
Oh, it was the black one. Okay.
Yeah, Mia.
I'm getting them so mixed up.
It's okay. Completely understood.
We know that there's something, like everything else in this show, there's something going on behind the scenes. There's an interaction that we're missing, but we get to see just more of we get more exposure to these idol characters. And obviously there's another certain character that we'll be talking about shortly hereafter that's, their number one fan that will play a very, very important role going forward. But no, I thought it was a great scene overall.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on, next we see Otakawa and Goriki having a conversation at his clinic at night, and Otakawa's complaining about him not getting as much medication as he wants or needs. And then we learn that Goriki is saying that he's going to close the clinic for a while as the medications aren't adding up. And he is acknowledging that they're getting stolen. And he says, if this gets out, I'll go from victim to perpetrator, as this is an inside job and it's been happening for a while. So the common line of reasoning or the common questioning would be, well, why didn't you do anything about this way sooner? So he wants to close for a while just so he can pretend it didn't happen. And then Otakawa brings up the money problems Shirakawa's been having, calling attention to the opening scene in episode 1 that we took note of, where she was conversing in an alleyway with Dobu. This seems like a detail that the audience should have only picked up on, and again, an attentive audience. But we also learn, Otakawa also noticed this. He said, I got a good look at her from behind when he drove by. And Goriki says, this is not enough to tell that it was Shirakawa. But he's like, no, I know it was her. I disagree. Before I get to the next scene, any thoughts on this one?
Oh boy, there is a very interesting payoff to this conversation. And I can't remember if the next episode or the one after, but
I think it's the one after. But I know what you're talking about, though.
Because I love our first conversation about this show, our last episode discussing episodes 1 through 4. Because right now, a big question on our minds with this series is how Otakawa views the world. Yep. Is it the same? Is it consistent with how everyone else is viewing it? And this is one of the big links to answering that question. So it's, again, they're giving you a little bit of bait here. They're trying to reel you in.
Yeah. This is a series based heavily on perception and the main character's perception. So
I think it's heavily based on mental health too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that's something that we'll definitely get into in a future episode. But yeah, what I got from this scene mostly is that Goriki is very honest. He's kind of blunt, not to the point to being considered rude in the culture like Otakawa is, but I respect it to the point where he doesn't beat around the bush and doesn't want to dance around things to avoid offense.
Well, and he doesn't really shy away from an insult. If I agree, I think it's the honesty, virtue of his character, because Otakawa will sometimes just swing a little jab at him, but he takes it when he knows he can't deny it.
Well, they're also clearly friends at this point.
Right.
It's more than
That's 100% something that you would do with friends. Is hey, I'm gonna just kind of bust your balls a little bit here, and we all take it in good nature. Like, you, Zach, and I, we all bust each other balls once in a while.
I think it's a stark contrast, though, with a character like Kakihana, where, like him, obviously it can be a personality type difference as well. But even with a serious conversation with Otokawa, Kakihana can't take being or confronting his flaws very well.
He has an extremely fragile ego. So very different interaction with his friends than how Otokawa deals with his friends. It's like night and day. But yeah, no, great points on that. But moving on to the next scene, Otokawa meets with Dobu and they have a conversation about Shirakawa and Yamamoto. But the big thing on Otokawa's mind before we get to Yamamoto is he asks Dobu about his connection with Shirakawa, because bringing up that conversation with Goriki about seeing Shirakawa's interaction with Dobu from behind, he's always held some sort of suspicion for her, even though he likes her and wants to believe in her. So he cuts the chase with Dobu and says, "You use Shirakawa to threaten me." And well, really, okay, a little step back. The reason I think this is now an issue to Otokawa is because now he's finally connecting the dots with the medication being stolen from Goriki. He now knows that Shirakawa is taking from Goriki, and that's kind of what spurs him to ask Dobu about his connection with Shirakawa. And he says, "You used Shirakawa to threaten me." Dobu acknowledges this, but says he didn't have Shirakawa approach him. And he asks about the drugs, and he admits to it, saying that he's shouldering her debt, so this is her payment to him for that. And then this is where Dobu irritatingly brings up Kabasawa's online crusade against him and how he's being a pain in his ass. And we also see him say that he'll need to know about the person wanting the dashcam data from the man earlier, or he'll be forced to kill Otokawa. And this is where Otokawa comes clean about it being Mystery Kiss's manager, Yamamoto. And Dobu reasons out that this is Yano's doing. So Dobu wants Otokawa to sell him the data with the parts he wants from it, the parts he wants cut from it, and see how much Yamamoto will spend on that. So there was a bit more going on in the scene, but I tried making it as concise as I could. Any quick thoughts on this interaction between the two?
Oh, definitely. I like how, and this is kind of like a reoccurring theme that I've noticed for Otokawa, is that he's very quick to pick up on things.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that a lot of people underestimate him because they think that, oh, he's just a taxi driver, so he's not that intelligent. But, I mean, he was really quick to suss out Dobu.
Oh,
and
yeah, no.
He had a really nice insult, too.
One thing that Otokawa just excels with is keeping calm under pressure and not giving control of the conversation to those trying to threaten him.
He's always controlling the conversation.
Right.
Definitely.
And his street smarts, they're above reproach, and they have to be, given his vocation. I mean, he clearly deals with a lot of very important people, and certain people like Yamamoto, where Dobu would love nothing more than to take the opportunity of getting that dash cam data without Otokawa or anyone else getting in the way. But Otokawa will not give him that leave. He's
right
in a very clever yet roundabout way. Otokawa was able to maintain control of the conversation, get what he wants while feigning the facade of helping him out, with the mutual goals.
Yeah.
Could you imagine yourself in that position as just a normal taxi driver? And if you were legitimately ignorant to that, if somebody's like, "Hey, do you want to just give me that footage for PV for my, up and coming band?" Why wouldn't you do that? I'm a good person.
In this case, though, recall from, I believe, episode 2 or 3, Dobu did say, if anyone comes to you wanting that data, just say you do not have it, or, at least consult me first. So he did have that explicit instruction in mind already. But,
right.
But you're right. The pressure is real. Oh, shit, what he said was going to happen is happening exactly as he said it would. So Yeah.
Well, that I've got to give it to Taichi. Like, he's still chasing that dream. You got to give it to him. I mean, he's definitely in over his head, but despite what we know, you got to kind of respect that drive to continue to hit that, first high, that bell that he rung with his first viral Twitter. So,
Kabasawa.
I mean, I know him as Taichi, the hippo. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Kabasawa.
That okay.
So Taichi, yeah, he's chasing that first high. His bell was rung. I don't think that he's ever gonna achieve that first high, but that's what he's going on, and you got to respect that drive and his devotion to it, as malintent as it might be.
Well, he's definitely gotten over his head, and we'll get there.
Yeah, I just view him as an annoying clout chaser, but
that's kind of the impression I got.
Yeah.
Well, yes, he is an annoying clout chaser, but like
I know you're saying, and
he's smart enough to determine that that's getting him views and that's getting him viral. So like if he's making money off of it, like, gotta respect the hustle, my dude.
I will to a point, but the Fine Bros respect the hustle, but I don't respect them. That warrants its own can of worms.
Though.
I get what you're saying.
No, I get it, but like, if you're gonna make money, like,
you're right.
He's making money, and it's not necessarily hurting anybody potentially, but himself.
Well, that I wouldn't quite agree with that.
But himself.
Yeah.
Now we'll save this for later, but I will, to end that specific point. What Kabasawa is doing is, in effect, threatening the lives of others trying to chase this, this murderer, this thief, this thug. And in his desperate chase for attention.
You tell me, Zach, do we have any consequences for his actions so far?
I would say so.
So far, okay. I wasn't going to get stuck on this, but now that we're really talking about it, you're right. So far, no, Rob. But my rebuttal to that, I guess, is the video. So, okay, I'll dig into it, but I'm just going to quickly go over this next scene because it gives a bit more on this. So Kakihana and Ichimura, so the calico cat of the idol group, they're awkwardly eating at a high-class restaurant in the next scene. So Ichimura says she loves baths because she grew up poor and crowded, and the bath was the only place that she could have alone time. Because as we recall from last time, we saw her speak with her idol mate, Mia, I believe. So in her conversation with Mia when she brought up her bathing, we learned about that detail, and we see Kaki keeps lying through his teeth about his lifestyle. He often is saying, so that's how you guys do things, when asking for stuff like a drink or a check at this restaurant, clearly exhibiting he
obviously has no idea how high class works.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he's trying to show off his socioeconomic line. He's never done this before, and like, as we'll constantly see, it's just a pathetic train wreck of a sight, and it just keeps getting worse. So Ichimura shows a video to him of Kabasawa's online call to bringing down Dobu as he goes on to list his various crimes, and this is where he reveals his full name and where he goes to university. So to get back to what we were talking about a minute ago, this is my issue with Kabasawa, and on one hand I do respect the hustle, but on the other hand, this is where he makes a fatal error. He's talking about a very dangerous career criminal, and he was talking about bringing him down with a social media mob. So,
well, with the whole knife on the face thing, that was kind of a little bit overboard. Yes,
I mean, it's all kind of overboard. You're trying to build up a vigilante force to taking down this vicious, dangerous criminal. You're probably going to get people killed if you get them this riled up trying to.
Mind you, something like this in the United States would actually warrant your arrest.
If it got this big, so this is 10 million views in Japan. That's like saying like 30 to 40 million views in the US. If you're like make a if you're just going off population sample. But in like New York, you took like a major criminal and you would go on a personal social media crusade against them. You're asking to get not only yourself, your family, but many other people potentially killed over this.
That's where the root of my concerns with his crusade start, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really all I had to say. It's irresponsible clout chasing.
Well,
That's
like I said, he's chasing his first high.
Yeah.
Like,
albeit in a reckless manner that will endanger those around him.
That doesn't matter to him because he's getting those endorphin hits from like social media.
Right.
And
well,
YouTube,
it's a very selfish
I empathize
ambition.
and understand, but I do not sympathize. So
oh no. Like I'm not saying that, Taichi is a character that we need to be sitting here and rooting for because like he's obviously young and inexperienced with how the world works and he's not making smart decisions at all.
Least.
But like I also understand like his point of view, like he's sacrificed a lot of things to do what he's doing. And while I necessarily do not agree with his viewpoint and how he's establishing his place within the world, he's getting rewarded for it. So it's Pavlov. Mm-hmm. Like that bell is ringing for Taichi. So why would he not do this? He's getting rewarded for it. And he's had no consequences for it. So why would he not do this?
Well, as you said, no consequences. So I fail to see the immediate sacrifices he's making, other than what will probably be happening in the future. But at this moment, but moving on, since we spent way too much time on the first episode. So this shot with, or this scene with Kakihana and Ichimura, it ends, and we end with a shot with a 100k yen loan statement that falls from his pocket from Taco
Man,
Taco
I
Loans.
still have so much to say about Kaki. You're getting cut, dude.
Oh, we'll have plenty more.
We'll
plenty more.
I'm saving the rest of my viewpoints for when we bring him up again.
But yeah, referring to Kabasawa, I feel like we've probably had most of what we need to say about him. So I'll probably skim over his future stuff. But yeah, no, I love this episode, but a lot of setup too. But the most important stuff, though, was largely involving that opening segment with Yamamoto. All right, next. So on to episode 6. Otakawa picks up Imai, again, the guy who won the lottery, and he's Mystery Kiss's biggest fan, specifically for Nikaido, that we saw in the prior episodes. So he's endlessly thankful to Otakawa because, as we can remember, he gave him the winning lottery numbers because he mentioned he was lucky. So, but he's also disappointed in Otakawa's tepid reaction, as he does with most things. So he also reveals that he foolishly revealed his winning numbers online. He wants to claim his winnings right when Mystery Kiss's new CD comes out, which is another foolish mistake. So he wants to thank Otakawa any way he can. He says, "Is there anything you need money for?" Shirakawa does come to Otakawa's mind, but he says not particularly. Regardless, he invites Otakawa to his place of work, which is being a waiter at the White Dolphin Cabaret Club. He offers Otakawa free service for life. He refuses to drink, but gives the girls at the Cabaret Club the go-ahead. Otakawa's really kind of awkward in this situation. He's very not used to...
He's so out of,
Yeah, he's very out of his element. Archetypical loner. He's used to his comfy little izakaya, talking with people he knows. He's very out of his element here. So next we see him trying to leave shortly after, but is stopped by Imai, saying he just enjoy himself a little more, take better advantage of what he's offering him, just try to relax a bit. And then, so this scene doesn't end here, but we do get a strange cut to Kakihana looking at wedding rings. This is like a 10-second scene.
It's so short, but I even have notes on it. It's like, Kaki, come on, bro. Come on.
So I do want to say it's kind of a cultural thing in Japan. Relationships move a lot quicker in Japan. Like the marriage conversation can happen within a few dates, like typically. Well, I'm not going to say typically, but that's not uncommon. Things move quick as far as relationships go in Japan because people have way less free time. So you tend to cut to the chase way quicker in Japan. So, I mean, just to give a little context behind that. So next, right after this incredibly short scene, we see Otokawa in the bathroom looking at the many missed calls from Shirakawa. And this is where we learn Otokawa replies in his message history, "Don't get involved with me again," at one point in his message history to Shirakawa. And then he's interrupted, being startled by a gunshot where we see a masked Tanaka, so the crazy guy, who now is the gun, standing on top of the piano in the middle of the club. He's clearly tailed Otokawa there. Imai runs into the bathroom to inform Otokawa of what's happening. And we see him peek out of the door to try giving the Otokawa the clear to run away. But then...
I gotta interject. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I honestly thought that Dobu's gun was fake.
Yeah.
The fact that really, because the fact that it's real and having a firearm in Japan is so rare because of how strict their
I mean,
gun
he's
policies
a
are.
thug though. I mean, they're gonna.
There's
find
a
way
reason
to.
he hid it. I do want to say fake guns are incredibly easy to get and even like carry in public in Japan. Like they're not like airsoft is actually really popular in Japan and they look like real guns. Like
Yes, they do, but at the same point, having a real gun, I literally thought that Dobu was bluffing with that gun. I was like,
okay.
They're so hard to come by, like having an
They are.
actual firearm in Japan. Like you got to be like top tier, like essentially gangster to have that shit. So the fact that he actually had a legitimate gun is
well, his boss does appear to be a high tier yakuza, so
right.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, we learn here it's very real. So, Imai gives Otokawa the clear to run, but right as he runs out the door and is running around the hallway corner, Tanaka does manage to spot him and is about to give chase. But then this is where we see him interrupted by Shibagaki, the boar comedian character, one half of the Homo sapiens comedy duo. And I guess we see that this is his day job, air quotes, being a cabaret server like Imai. And he tries to make a funny with Tanaka, saying, "What, do you like dress for Halloween or something? Isn't it a bit early for that?" And
Shibabaki really got the short end of the stick here.
Like, I mean, he was egging him on though.
Yeah,
I mean, he was like.
And then we hear a gunshot when Otokawa's outside, and then later we see the bullet hole still smoking above Shibagaki's head. Imai comes, sees if he's all right. We can easily infer Tanaka ran off at this point. And then he says, "I thought it'd be funny if I got shot." So
like,
that really...
what's funny about that? Like, what is funny about that? Like,
he has a really fatalistic streak going on right now.
Right.
With his comedy.
Is he so low down with himself that he thought it would be funny if he died? Like, god damn, Shibagaki. Like,
I feel bad for him.
I do. I really do.
Yeah, so next we see Shirakawa waiting at Otokawa's house. She's being ignored. He's just walking in, unlocking his door. Then she starts shouting at the neighborhood, "Otokawa's ignoring me." And then he relents. He's like, "Fine, let's talk." So next they meet at the park where they talked to before. Otokawa exhibiting his shame in being vulnerable with her and that he was very happy for a short time. And he's really angry at the pretense of their relationship being a manipulation and what she's also doing to Goriki, his friend. So this is where she says she comes clean, and she just comes right out front with, "Me and Dobu used to date for about 4 years." He's like, "Well, wait, I didn't even know about this detail." So she says it was because of money, and Otokawa asks why she approached him, and brings up that Dobu was interested in him based on the patient list that she shared, and was told to approach Otokawa, and told her that he is going to rob a bank at some point and will probably need a taxi driver as his getaway car. And we also learned that Shirakawa still owes Dobu about 3 million yen, or about $30,000, due to exploitative interest, saying that he would beat me, but also that he's actually a weak man and I couldn't just leave him be. And I recall Otokawa saying something lines like, "I'm not interested in your codependent relationship." And
Yes.
Shirakawa caps off the conversation, "I'll apologize to Goriki because I love you." And then Otokawa reiterates, "Don't ever get involved with me again," and then walks away. Pretty big scene. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Dude, Otokawa is literally just digging himself deeper into this whole,
Always.
I love you, and he's like, I doubt it. And I'm just sitting there like, poor Otokawa, because I feel like he legitimately wanted to believe that he found somebody that would love him for who he is. And it was just like, no, now that I've figured out some shit, like, you're just using me. Fucking poor Otokawa.
Yeah, but I think his intentions are very misleading in the scene as well, because he ends it with reiterating his point: don't get yourself involved with me ever again. I don't want to see you. We see later that he hasn't necessarily cut ties with Shirakawa at this point, as much as he's
but his intentions are trying to distance himself to protect her, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's where I was getting at, because it's not immediately obvious what he's thinking right now when he's saying this to distance himself between him and Shirakawa. But as we see later, his intentions are not to cut ties with her. This is a means to protect her, but she can't be actively involved with the crime that Otokawa is around, against his will.
Yeah, as always, he's sacrificing his feelings and desires for others, because on some level, I believe he doesn't feel like he's worthy of being able to lead a happy life. There's something always in the back of his mind gnawing at him. He's clearly a very deeply troubled individual. He has skeletons in the closet, and they haunt him clearly all the time. So, and even the next shot of him is him lying on his living room floor in the dark saying, "I'm tired," right after that scene with Shirakawa. Next day, Otokawa's listening to Homo Sapiens on the radio, with Shibagaki recounting the gun being pointed at him, set to kind of a montage of them having their conversation audio-wise. But we also see Kakihana meeting with his debtor, who loans him more money as he looks on as loan sharks look on sternly at Kakihana. During this montage where Shibagaki and Baba are talking on the radio, they have an argument over comedy. He kind of goes into his reasoning why he thought getting shot here would be funny, but the bottom line, I guess, was saying in his day laughter came from the gut. It was more, there were more stakes to comedy, I guess. And we also see a shot of Kakihana playing pachinko as they continue talking. Real quick, did you guys have any insight on this scene or thoughts on it?
Yeah. So my final thoughts on this episode is,
well, no, sorry, I meant on that scene of the two.
Well,
talking.
yeah. Well, scene in general is just we've got a trio of disasters between Shiobaki, Otokawa, and Kaki. I feel like each of these three characters are just continuously digging themselves deeper into shit that they should not be involved in.
I would argue almost all the characters are.
Yeah.
Well,
but in one way or another.
It's very obvious with them, though, for sure.
Right, and it focused really hard on these three characters in particular for this episode, right?
Yeah, definitely. Quickly to get to the end of this episode. So next we see at Yamabiko, the izakaya that Goriki, Kaki, and Otokawa all like going to. So Kakihana is eating sushi happily there. Where the scene shifts back to the recording studio, where Baba's confronted by a crowd of fans, where Shibagaki gets in a taxi, and he's stopping by that rude high school fan from prior episodes. And he writes, so the one that writes in every time and he runs up to Shibagaki as he's getting in the taxi with a crazed look in his eyes. He says, "I know what you mean. What's so funny about rolling your eyes?" Because this is part of the conversation in that earlier montage sequence. And Shibagaki says, "Your understanding doesn't mean shit to me." He slams the door on him and just says, "Get me the hell away from this guy," to the taxi driver. So, and we learned that the student's name is Nagashima Satoshi. This is the only time we've seen him before or since, but I have a feeling he'll be important later. So next we cut to Dobu watching more Kabasawa videos online with an angered, nervous look on his face. He says, "I feel like I'm being blamed for all the crimes in the world," and also knows that the gun from the recording of Tanaka shooting at the club is his, making the situation truly bad for him, because once his higher-ups realize that he lost his gun, it's in the hand of some nut, that probably means game over for Dobu. So Dobu proposes to join forces with Otokawa as they now have mutual interests. This Halloween guy is trying to kill you, and I need to get my gun back. So regarding Mystery Kiss, he wants Otokawa to get more info from Yamamoto. He says he will make sure Goriki can return to his clinic, and Otokawa agrees, but only on one condition: release Shirakawa, write off her debt. And this is where Dobu says, "Fine, I promise," and they shake hands. So next,
yeah, fuck, man. Even out of that, like, he kept on telling Shirakawa that, "Don't do anything with me, I'm done with you," but like he's still going out of his way to help her and protect her, and just like, upstanding character, Otokawa, upstanding.
Definitely. And so to end this scene, Dobu wants Otokawa to find Kabasawa, while Dobu will dress as the Halloween shooter so that he can blend in with the crowds on Halloween. He expects to run into who we know as Tanaka one way or another, as he says he's the self-aggrandizing type. And based on episode 4, we definitely know that. So Otokawa says he's good at distinguishing people in crowds and that he should be of help here. So before we move into this final scene, any thoughts on this exchange between Otokawa and Dobu?
Yeah, once again, this is a very common praise I have with this series, but these are very well-directed sequences.
Yeah.
A lot of times when Otokawa has to push back against anyone threatening him while he's in the taxi, he doesn't just allow the conversation to be controlled.
Yeah, he's always seeing the strings and motivators behind people. He's very good at manipulating the conversation to his own ends and to the people he wants to protect. So yeah, no, I agree. Like, again, another fantastic scene exhibiting what Otokawa is good at and doing it in a completely convincing manner. Like, this show is so well written. So in the final scene of the episode, we see Baba talking with his producer, discussing that his producer is saying that Baba has got good breeding and that everyone likes him. And then this is where Baba brings up Shibagaki, who Mr. Producer says he should cut out of his life because Shibagaki is always giving him shit for being mediocre or not trying his best. And I believe he also mentions that he still wants to participate in the N1 Grand Prix, which is the comedy competition that is coming up with him and Shibagaki. Producer's just like, why are you even bothering with that? Just cut it out. And he's like, well, I've been preparing a year for it. I'm going to try. And then he says something along the lines of, do your best. And then he just walks away. And then we kind of get the final scene in the episode where Nikaido comes in to talk about her success to Baba, and also mentions that Baba doesn't need to work so hard, that she likes that he's the opposite end of her excessive ambition. And this is where they have a hug, revealing their relationship. So Baba, one half of the comedy duo, and Nikaido, the leader of Mystery Kiss, are in a relationship with each other, apparently. So they're interrupted, however, by Yamamoto. He opens the door. They move apart just in time. And afterwards, Baba is called by Shibagaki about meeting up to discuss material for their competition. Basically, no dates work as Baba has shoots, parties, and filming. And I really like this scene because it's set to the outro sequence, vocalized outro, and Shibabaki's kind of walking on the street, depressed as usual, seeing signs of Baba's success, and that's where the episode ends. But yeah,
right. This whole
thoughts?
episode was shitting on Shibabaki, Otakawa, and Kaki. Like, it's just the trio of disaster. Like, god damn it.
Yeah, Shibagaki has it rough, but with him, I'd say it's just more fatalistic, and he's just down on himself. Kakihana can literally not make one correct decision about anything in life.
Yeah.
And Otakawa, he just has no...
He's just digging himself further down this hole.
And I don't think that he's
doing it. Right, he's not doing it intentionally. Like,
no, I think he is doing it intentionally. It's just he has no regard for himself or his own happiness. He only wants to help the people around him that are important to him. So he's just trying to make the best of a bad situation, but completely at his own expense.
Right.
So, however, I do think the portrait of him will prove to be a bit more nuanced going forward, as there's probably a lot of reasoning behind that deep self-hatred. But before we get to that, let's take a break, and then we will finish episodes 7 and 8. And we'll be right back. And we're back. So, opening up with episode 7, we have a shot of Kabasawa's university. Otakawa's waiting outside, sitting alongside his taxi door. Then he asks a passerby about Kabasawa himself, so another student at the university. And this is where the student says he doesn't come to class anymore. And then he reveals that Kabasawa is actually famous among the students for being a coward who's desperate for recognition. And as the viewer, that definitely tracks. So
I already want to interject here because
all right, go ahead, go for it.
You couldn't just let it have this one, could you?
No, I couldn't because part of my thoughts with like Kabasawa or Tachi, as I've noted him, is that I always had this underlying feeling that Kabasawa is way over his head when it comes to doing
for sure
shit like this.
As we established, yes.
Right. And I always figured that he was letting that, his fame float his ego to the point where he didn't realize.
Oh, definitely. That's his character flaw.
Right. Where he didn't realize the shit that he's stirring in that shit pot, Randy Bobandy. But this is the first indication that, Kabasawa knows what he's kind of getting into. So it's... Yeah, that's actually pretty. That's pretty. Well, he's not attending the school anymore, and So So I guess a point of discussion is do we know this for a fact that he's doing this for the safety of himself, or is he doing this because like he's dropped school because he feels like him becoming viral is now something that can sustain him?
I think it's both. I think
part of it is both, but man, I am way leaning more heavily into he's caught on the fame train and now fuck university. Who needs that shit? I got my clout now.
Exactly. The way I view it is I have to go into hiding because this is a dangerous criminal and I'm not going to I already proclaimed where I go to university. I'm not going to make myself visible so this crazy lunatic can bag me, essentially. But also, yes, he's absolutely riding the social media hype train. And I'm sure somewhere in his mind he thinks, man, I've hit it big already. I don't have to go to university. I'm set. I can milk this for all it's worth, and then I can just go on to the next thing, because now I have clout. And in a way, that's probably correct. But he doesn't know he doesn't know who he's truly fucking with here. The Yakuza are ultimately behind this. So
right. Well, and like I said, he's chasing that first high, right?
Of course.
He's chasing that bell ringing. So he's throwing all caution to the wind. But I don't know, man. I think he's finally, like, maybe slowly starting to realize that, hey, I'm in way over my fucking head for this shit.
Well, based on what goes later on this episode, I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't think he's arrived there quite yet.
I think he has on some level because he's stopped going to university, but at the same time, but we'll get into it. And I did promise,
we're going off the rails already.
I did promise myself that I was mostly done with Kabasawa for like extended conversation. But all right, moving on. Otakawa. We see him next at his house, and he walks in finding glass fragments on the floor and looking at a bullet hole from his window going into the wall. And next, we see Kakihana putting on his suit in his own apartment, happily looking at the ring he bought from the prior episode in that 10-second sequence.
Pain.
And then his debtors start coming knocking on the door to collect the money that he owes. Again, a very short Kakihana scene, but necessary.
Debtors are such a nice word to put it. They're loan sharks, bro. Come on.
Yes, definitely loan sharks. But so next we see Otakawa go to the local Koban, or I don't know how local it actually is, but it's a Koban. And for any of you who might not know about like Japanese culture, a Koban is basically like a very small police station. So rather than having like large like police stations, you know, separated by precinct or whatever, Japan is like peppered with these like tiny Kobans, which are like, think of like a police station, but it's only manned by like 2 to 10 people.
Right, so, rather than having a dedicated facility in a
like
prefecture, like you said, they're just scattered with these like 1 to 2 men.
You could go like at the end of any block and you could find your like local Koban. There's like one like next like every train station, and there's quite a few aside from that anyways. But so he goes to the Koban where the younger Daimon brother Koshiro is, and he goes to report the bullet fired into his house, and he wants the younger Daimon brother to come alone. So he says so he reluctantly agrees. He comes there later that evening, and then when he comes there, he says, "Oh shit, there actually is a bullet here. I'm not ready for this. I need to file a lot of paperwork and set up a proper investigation." But this is where Otakawa says, the rest of the police cannot actually get involved with this. And then he goes on to explain, or rather ask Daimon why he wanted to become a police officer. And this is where he says, well, to punish evil. And Otakawa says, well, why do you want to punish evil? And Daimon says, his parents were killed in a hit and run by a taxi driver. And then I recall Otakawa saying like, well, okay, so this is why you hate me so much. Then he goes on to say, well, your brother is now evil. He now works with Dobu. Dobu knows about the rumors, but says his brother denied it and believes it. So Otakawa is giving him an opportunity to catch Dobu in the act of doing a major crime by revealing that he's working with Dobu, explaining the rivalry between Dobu and Yano to Daimon, while also illustrating again that Koshiro's brother is an associate of Dobu. Younger Daimon's about to write all of this off, saying you're just a dirty liar. But then Daimon reveals his doubts when saying catching Dobu would get his brother arrested. So Otakawa says that if Daimon's brother is doing bad things, then it's his duty to punish him. What are your guys' thoughts on what I just said?
I got a lot to say. So first off, Otakawa, just keep digging, bud. God damn it. I feel like he's digging his own hole here.
Yeah, but man, can you blame him? Like, he's actually going to a somewhat third-party, uninvolved police officer, no less, trying to
I guess
sense of the situation and cover his bases. I mean, this is a very smart move on his end.
It's the smartest move.
Yeah, I would also argue the smartest move.
So we also get that Daimon has a Batman complex, right? Like, oh, my parents were killed. Now I have this, false sense of justice to punish all evil. I don't know. Like, the scene had so much going on with it. Like, oh, well, you've been talked to within the department about maybe having anything to do with the kidnapping of that high school girl. You don't mind if I check around? And Otakawa was like, no, I don't mind. You can check around anywhere. So I think this is going to bring a big point into episode 8 for a discussion. But starts checking around. He was about to get into the door, but gets called off for something. And it's just like us as an audience at that point, we're like, bro, I want to know what's in that fucking door. Like,
I mean, it's a little tease. Probably one last thing I'll mention about the scene, because I enjoyed this one as well, in particular because throughout this series we only get like glimpses of the Diamond brothers, the younger one in particular, or I guess I can't remember if the one with glasses is younger or older. I think it's younger, but we see him justify his brother's actions left and right. I mean, that's a defining character trait of his. Yeah. But I love just throughout this conversation, especially leading into the next episode. Yeah, like he's justifying his brother's actions less and less. And by the time we see him next to his brother, like he is not on board with his shenanigans anymore. Like he's clearly suspicious.
Yeah, it's difficult for him to deny what Otakawa was actually saying. Like he's air quotes dumb, but he's not so dumb that he can't connect the dots, Right. Especially when it's put in front of him, like on a silver platter, like it is right now. So to finish off this scene, the younger Daimon predictably reveals that he's a subscriber of Kabasawa. So he knows about the Halloween shooter. Otakawa reveals his further plans with Dobu, catching the shooter, reveals his grudge against him, what he's doing to a friend of his. And I think it's of note here, because often the scene is cutting to him drawing out this for younger Daimon to make it easier for him to digest. When he reveals his grudge against Dobu and what he's doing to a friend of his, he's actually referring to Goriki here, as he scribbles out Shirakawa's name below Goriki's on the paper. So that's interesting, because we did mention earlier that Otakawa is being somewhat self-sacrificial regarding Shirakawa, but I think this also reveals that he might not entirely trust Shirakawa, even then. Like, I feel on some level he does, because he did say, on one condition to Dobu earlier, free Shirakawa. But on the other hand, like, he's scribbling off her name as he says that. So on some level, there's still some suspicion there. Like he still doesn't fully trust her.
I didn't get quite that response from this. I think this was more of an act of protecting her again, because this is clearly a list of names that are involved in this.
He didn't even
crime.
have to put her name on there though, because she's an unknown to the cops.
Well, and again, I think he kind of realized this too late and scratched her off to draw less suspicion towards her involvement. That was more of what I got out of it.
Fair enough. But we do need to move. So he reveals the bank robbery plan to younger Daimon, says that little Daimon will catch Dobu at that time, and he's fine taking the fall along with Dobu so long as Dobu's arrested. And Otakawa says younger Daimon can look around his place, as Rob said, acknowledging the rumor that he's holding the missing Nerima City girl, but is interrupted by a radio call. So he never checks closet, and that's the end of that. So next, we see Kakihana leaving his place late at night, texting Ichimura that he'll meet her soon. And this is a commonality between these episodes, like, Kakihana gets these really short scenes, but we need them to know what's going on with him. So he sends a text, he'll be there soon. That's it with Kakihana. Next, we see Otakawa at his closet saying, "Good girl," as the TV in the background says a body has been found in the Tokyo Bay. So I want us all to remember the very opening shot of Odd Taxi Episode 1 is a body being thrown into the Tokyo Bay with the cinder blocks. That is an important detail. It's the Laura Palmer of the series. Sorry, you guys probably don't know Twin Peaks, but regardless. So after the eye catch, so the mid-episode eye catch, the report goes on into more detail that this is the body of a woman believed to be in her teens to 30s. That was just discovered, as the news said. And now says to the so Otakawa now says to the slightly open closet, "Now you can't escape," as he patches up the window. The TV says roughly a month has passed since her death. And it's been roughly a month at this point, if I'm not mistaken, that the Nerima city girl went missing. Or that may have been 2 weeks ago. I can't exactly remember. But in my mind, that connection is maybe the Nerima city girl's already dead, and the person in that closet is not actually in that closet, but a figment of his... So, like, his imaginary version of her. He's deluding himself into thinking she's still alive, hanging out in his closet when she's actually dead. Real quick, what are you guys' thoughts on that? That's my crack theory.
So, this is digging deep into.
I mean, that's all
speculation.
That's all the show is. So,
but
go for it.
So, my thoughts is the body we see in the beginning. I'm predicting the reveal will be Otakawa dumping the body in the river, having discovered that this girl had been shot and killed in some way. And to avoid the gangster boss or people seizing control of the city or going into like a territory war or something like that, hides the body of the boss's daughter in his closet because he's acquainted and well aware of the people that he's like chauffeuring. So definitely. I think that's the extent of where my speculation is leading right now.
No, I like that.
Okay, so but if the body is in there, there's no way that Little Diamond would not have been able to smell the decomposition.
You're right.
I did consider that.
You're right, and that's what I was saying. I don't think the body is in there. I think if he looked in there, there would be nothing in there. I think Otakawa's deluding himself into thinking that the girl's hiding in there. I think he's blotting out the memory and deluding himself into thinking she's still alive. That's my interpretation. I don't know, like, maybe you guys think differently on that, but we'll definitely see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on. So, next we see Otakawa reading text from Shirakawa saying that her relationship has been dissolved with Dobu. Very quick scene. So, next scene, we see Shirakawa herself meeting with Goriki to apologize about what she's done. So she says Goriki says he can't pay her, but asks her for helping in treating Otakawa. But then next, again, a very short scene. Kakihana meets with Ichimura at the industrial area by the coast, but then he's hit on the head by a subordinate of Yano, who we know as Sakaguchi, and he's like more like a polar bear character, I want to say, with like a jumpsuit, and is carried off. So Yamamoto tells Ichimura to not be late.
So first off, sorry, gotta
Go
interrupt,
ahead.
but what the fuck, Shiho? What the fuck?
I mean, I saw it coming from a mile away.
I saw it.
I mean, I did too. I wanted to give Kaki...
Yeah, but man, he took the bait.
My heart. I mean, he did. He really did, but...
I mean, Otakawa immediately... Like, right when Kakihana showed that match to Otakawa, he's like, "You're being scammed, dude." Like, immediately. Yeah. Like, it's obvious.
Well, right, but like...
I do feel bad for him, though.
Right. And it still just plays into the trio of disaster, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
I mean, like, Kaki got. He did, but I still feel terrible for him because he's resting all of his hopes on finding love.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the way that he's going about it is not right.
Yeah,
with lying and deceit and all that shit. But like,
he's
earnest. Yeah, he's desperate. Exactly.
Yeah, he's extremely desperate. Yeah, he's clearly pathetic, but again, this series goes through great lengths of showing you his circumstances. Like, you can understand where this character's headspace is, even if it is pathetic, even if it is largely delusional and dishonest. Like, you can't help but feel bad for the guy. So I agree with you there. But yeah, so Yamamoto tells Ichimura to not be late to the Halloween event at Shibuya later that evening. So they drag Kakihana off, and then we go to the next scene where Odokawa actually... So Odokawa is at Shibuya during Halloween at this point, and he accidentally finally runs into Yano. So now we know who Yano is. He falls off his scooter as he crashes into Odokawa. And then we get a great little rap from Yano saying, basically, you should apologize to Odokawa, but in a roundabout way says, you're also all right. Please explain to me, you guys, real quick, what your takeaway was from that. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that he was saying that you should apologize to Odokawa. He's like, you need to apologize to me.
No, that's what I meant. That's what Yano. Right,
exactly. So Yano automatically comes off as kind of how like Dobu explained to us, a little bit arrogant and extra.
Extremely extra. He's like the most extra character easily in this series and in many series I've seen lately. So
I really enjoy the design of Yano, and I like the beats to Yano, but like my first introduction to Yano, I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, this kind of fucking annoying. Like he dances around the bush to incorporate his rap and rhymes instead of like just getting to the point. Like he does get to the point eventually, but it's kind of annoying to get there.
Well, let me throw you a $150 here. I mean, this is a clear display of dominance. Mm-hmm. He is high on a ride of self-worth and arrogance, which is not necessarily unjustified given the power he has in this turf. But the just manner, like this, how extra he is just to demand an apology, and even in passing uses very threatening language demanding this, but in a very upbeat, rappy attitude. It's hilarious,
and I love
menacing,
the hip-hop music
and
playing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It's very chilling, but also menacing at the same time. I think it's a great introduction.
Based on what comes after in next episode, like, I think he exhibits a degree of intelligence that belies like the sillier aspects of him. Like, I almost have to think that part of him is a mask to make people underestimate him. Like, I feel
I completely agree. I think
feel like he's
to
a
employ his
complete
tactics.
Snake, like, but in the most cutthroat way possible. Like, I think
he's young and he's arrogant and he's coming up in this game.
He might be. He probably is very arrogant, but I also think he's dangerously intelligent. And if I'm being honest, I think he's going to be the single greatest obstacle to Odokawa going forward of anyone.
I agree.
Aside from maybe Tanaka at certain points, but I think Yano's extremely dangerous, personally.
Oh, for sure. I think this is definitely, in my opinion, a way for him to employ like many different tactics and make people underestimate him with this front of
how he
speaks.
So we're already established about how dangerous Dobu is. And Dobu compared to Yano, so I get it. Like, Dobu compared to Yano is just this bumbling muscle.
He's a brute.
Like, yeah, he's a dumb idiot. Yes, exactly.
He's not stupid, but
he's the berserker. He has one goal set in mind and will strive for that goal, where Yano is playing strings.
Exactly. Dobu's brutal, simple efficiency, but Yano is all about setting up, a slight within a slight.
It's the checkers playing versus the man playing chess.
Yeah, and in any given situation, both can be more effective than the other. But honestly, I think Yano has Dobu's number in the end, if I'm being honest.
I agree.
Moving on, since we're pretty behind. I love how Odokawa ends the scene, though. After that happens, people lose their minds on Halloween. If viewers, if you all want to know, or listeners, if you all want to know how crazy Shibuya can get during Halloween, just look it up. It's one of the craziest Halloween parties in the world. So Yamamoto and Nikaido next are discussing business when Ichimura comes up and says she wants to stop running these Badger games. Though Nikaido says, how else will you earn money for this agency? Showing that her hands are far from clean as well. She's just as engaged in this dirty business as Yamato is. So next we see Otokawa meeting up with Dobu. They have a discussion on how they haven't found Skull Mask yet. Otokawa says that since the Halloween shooter wears a full hood and mask, he can't distinguish him. But Dobu then shows Otokawa a tweet that Kabasawa made in Shibuya and wants Otokawa to find him in the crowd for Dobu. So after a short scene of Dobu and Otokawa trailing who they think is actually the Skull Mask or Halloween shooter, we cut to Yano at a warehouse washing his hands, then putting on some gloves, answering a call for Yamamoto and telling him to get there quick. So next scene, as these are all pretty quick sequence of events, Dobu beats the pretend Halloween shooter with a broom, knowing that the gun he pulls is fake, and threatens to kill him right then and there. Otokawa looks on reluctantly as...
Here we get Dobu don't fuck around.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then suddenly, Otokawa notices that they're being filmed by who else than Kabasawa himself, peering over the alley wall. So they give chase, but they then lose him in the crowd. And then finally, Yano arrives to remove Kakihana's mask. So plowed right through those sequence of events, but again, we're running short on time. Any thoughts on those events or the episode as a whole?
Sorry.
There's
so much to say. There's so much
a lot
to say. I mean, like, we already knew that Dobu didn't fuck around from, like, our preface or, like, our introduction to Dobu, but, like, I mean, the fact that Otokawa didn't step in on that vicious beating of the dude that was obviously not the Halloween shooter, like...
Yeah,
I feel like that kind of falls into Otokawa's character of self-preservation. Like, I get it. Like, this dude is enraged and beating the fuck out of somebody with a fucking broom, but still, I mean, like, you want to root for Otokawa and say that he's in the right doing what he's doing, but, like, he should have fucking stepped in there.
I mean, Dobu has a legendary reputation as someone who's extremely violent. So I think on some level, Otokawa knew it was going to happen here, but I also think this is well within his calculus. I don't think Otokawa thought Dobu was actually going to kill anyone, like, so close to a large crowd. However, I mean, there is an argument to be made there. So yeah, on some level, I agree with you. What do you think of these scenes, Zach?
I mean, I'm going to keep this brief because, again, there is a lot to say about this.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, yeah. Like, what stuck out to you most, though?
I think it's the extent at which Kabasawa went to catch Dobu in the act and put himself in danger to retain this clout. And I think especially the next time we see Kabasawa after these events cements my attitudes towards him and this not being a noble venture. There's clearly lots of self-interest at play, I think, more than anything. But that was the thing that stuck out most to me going into us seeing poor Kakihana being tied up.
God, I love it. I never expected us to have by far the most discussion time on Kabasawa of all people, but here we are. This episode was as dense as any of the others. Just scene after scene, blow after blow. I loved all of it. Really, I think the big takeaway, though, from the end of this episode is Kabasawa is willing to go to any lengths to increase his clout, and Yano is turning out to be way more dangerous and frankly interesting than I thought he was initially going to be. So with that, let's move on to episode 8. So we open it with a scene of Yano and Sekiguchi, again, the polar bear in the tracksuit, discussing who Kakihana is, about how he's drowning in debt and desperate. And Yano looks at the wedding ring Kakihana was possessing while mocking him. telling him how thoroughly stupid he was, essentially, for trusting Ichimura. And in the next scene, in Otakawa's taxi, he receives a call from Yamamoto asking to be picked up right away. Gets the okay signal from Dobu as he says he'll be there soon. I believe it was about 10 minutes or so. So before he does that, Dobu says he wants to ride in the trunk so he can eavesdrop on their conversation, but is shot down by Otakawa and eventually compromises and tells Otakawa to just sell it for 1 billion yen. So I believe that's about $10 million. So before I get into the conversation with Yamamoto, though, any quick thoughts on these two opening scenes?
Yeah, just real quick. So, like, all right, Yano was kind of annoying at first with his, like, rap stuff, but I'm not going to lie, like, the theme is kind of growing on me.
Oh, and I do want to call attention to whoever was translating that, because whoever was translating that actually kept it in mostly rhyming and in verse. So
oh yeah, no, like they kept the lyrics and like the rhythm in sync. Like they did a great job.
Yeah, like major props to whoever did that. We're following the Crunchyroll subs, as I assume most of the listeners are, but yeah, huge props to them. But yeah, sorry, any more thoughts from you guys on these initial scenes?
Right. Personally, no. I think most of it comes after here.
Gotcha. So moving on to Yamamoto in his conversation with Otakawa. So he enters the taxi with Ichimura asking to be taken to the harbor. Of course, Otakawa has no idea what's happening to Kakihana at this point. So Otakawa, looking in the rear view, notices Ichimura, and this jogs his memory, and he says, "A calico cat. Where have I seen one before?" I mean, just a couple episodes ago, we saw him also picking up Ichimura there. So I'm not assuming he means Ichimura when he says that. I'm thinking she's just jogging his memory again of a different calico cat. And as Yamamoto wonders what he's talking about, he next tells Ichimura that if she wants to quit, she has to tell Yano herself because she's tired of these Badger games, as she said. Also brings up that her target had no money. Of course, we know that as Kakihana. So Yamamoto asks Otakawa about the dashcam data yet again and is told he'll sell it for 1 billion yen. Yamamoto laughs it off at first as a joke, but then Otakawa says, "I found someone who will buy it for 900 million, and that's why I want 1 billion. And as usual, he delivers his lines coldly enough, matter-of-factly enough. Yamamoto buys it. So he asks Otakawa who it is, but he says he can't say. So Yamamoto says he'll need to discuss it with someone else before going further on the subject. But clearly he looks like he's being pushed into a corner here. So in the next scene, after they're dropped off, Kakihana starts shouting for Ichimura as she enters the warehouse with Yamamoto, asking if she's been tricked in this situation and saying he'll protect her. Sure, dude, sure. Ichimura shuts him down, but he says, "They're making you say that, aren't they?" And then she says, "Spending time with you is painful. That's why I want to quit running these Badger games." So
I knew she was a bitch, dude. God damn it.
Yeah. Kakihana keeps shouting liar at her as she reveals more, and then he just keeps getting his ass beat further. So, reflecting on these last two scenes with the Yamamoto Ichimura taxi ride and Ichimura entering the warehouse, any thoughts before moving forward on that?
1 billion yen. I wonder where they're gonna try to get that money from.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah.
For the intent listeners, there's a very clear indicator where this will be sourced from. So
Dobu thought he was being clever throwing that number out there, but really that's what just made it very obvious to Yano what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to that. But yes. But of course, Yamamoto was not privy to that information at that moment, so he wasn't connecting the dots. But Yano, as we'll see, has a lot more information at his disposal, and he immediately knew what was going on. when that number was brought up. So
Oh yeah, he's got the strings on his fingers for all the different puppets at his disposal.
very much the figurative spider. So next scene, we see Otokawa outside the warehouse. He notices the scooter, and then he's given a text from Goriki asking about a picture of someone from behind. To the viewer and to Otokawa, it's obvious that's Kakihana, and he types, "It's Kakihana, you unemployed bum." And then is asked if he wants to get drinks at Yamabiko, to which he agrees. And like we said earlier, they're on a pretty casual basis. They shit fling like it's all good. So Goriki and Shirakawa.
Was that a gorilla joke?
What was?
They
shit fling? No. Pun unintended. Genuinely. So Goriki and Shirakawa have a conversation next. So next scene. Sorry, take a little step back. Goriki and Shirakawa meet up at the clinic. This is implied to have happened right before he sends a text to Otokawa. So they're having a conversation at his clinic about Otokawa's abilities to distinguish people in situations and angles that shouldn't be possible for most individuals. So Goriki thought it was exceptional memory at first, but after more time believes that in this case it's synesthesia, or that he has some sort of indicator for telling people apart. And for those who don't know, and I know he divulges a bit in the episode about what it is, synesthesia is the ability to connect two completely separate senses and somehow make sense of them. So, for example, like being able to taste a color or being able to feel a sound.
Maybe a bit more easier way to understand it is when observing or interacting with one sense, a separate one is triggered in its place.
Yeah, exactly. I was just giving some of the more common examples. But
correct. Right.
As we have been speculating, I think it's pretty safe to say that Otokawa is his form of synesthesia is seeing people as animals. So he codes people as these animals. So, for example, like, so she was a calico cat, or there's not many alpacas living in this area when referring to Shirakawa. He has this almost preternatural ability to sort people out in his mind and classify them based on these animals. But I guess the central conceit of this show is we are seeing everything through the lens as he would see the world as. That's right. My interpretation, but to me it seems like a pretty obvious interpretation. Like,
it bears in mind that no one ever comments on this either. Like no one agrees or rebuttals. Like they're either agape or just brush it off.
Yeah, and when he mentions the calico cat in the earlier scene in this episode, Yamamoto's like, what are you talking about? You know, like, so yeah, real quick, do you have any thoughts on that, Rob?
Yes, definitely. So, like, we've been getting, like, breadcrumbs to knowing that there was something wrong with Otokawa. I think at this point, you come to the realization as an audience that you weren't really thinking about his viewpoint to mental health issues, where everything that he's seen, including to, you know, potentially the person in his closet, may or may not be a illusionatory or auditory hallucination due to some sort of like mental illness or potential like tumor. Because within that scene with Goriki and, you know, the alpaca, there was a scan of Otokawa's brain. Like there was a MRI scan in his medical records. So I didn't necessarily see a tumor in there, but that's not going to rule that out. So
yeah,
very huge, I think, revelation to how Otokawa operates and what his demeanor is. And yeah, you're right. That was a great call out on how nobody else really engages in him calling other people like, you know, specific animals.
For sure. And I mean, for example, the comedy duo, they're called the Homo sapiens. Like, that's another blatant hint that the show throws out to the viewer, you know, like, hey, if you actually think about this, you know, like, there's blatant reference to humans in this show, but you never see any humans. Like,
Right.
So there's one thing. And another thing, early on in the show, like in the first couple episodes, we see those red background, black silhouettes in Otakawa's memories of that accident that happened, that car crash. Like, my interpretation is that this is some sort of brain trauma that caused this synesthesia to happen.
Mm-hmm. And on a related note, I think one of the only few other instances where people reference another individual as an animal is, I believe it's 2 episodes ago, episode 6, where the main cat girl of the idol group and Shibagawa's comedy duo, Baba. Yeah, Shibagaki, that's it. His comedy duo partner, Baba, the idol. I mean, we established that they're in a relationship. That was one of the few instances where she called him horseface. I don't want to I can't remember what the offhand comment was, but
it's interesting.
It was
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was an instance though that could be interpreted as just sarcasm, not to be taken at face value, because Baba takes it like he doesn't. I guess it's worth pointing out that his reaction to it wasn't as matter of fact as it would have been if these were literally animals.
Yeah, for sure. And as we'll see in a little later in the next scene, or one of the scenes that come quickly after this one, in one of those texts Goriki sent to Otakawa, one of them is literally a bird. It's a picture of a bird. And he says it's a bird, but we'll actually just get to that in a minute. But just keep that in mind, I guess, is all I'm saying. But to me, it's clear that this form of synesthesia is, and this is how he's so good at viewing people in crowds, that he sees these people as these literal anthropomorphized animals. So that's my take. And that's why he also can't easily distinguish the Halloween shooter, because he's had a mask on and a hoodie. Like, he doesn't have anything else to go off of. So he can't anthropomorphize that person in his head. So, all right. Next. Shirakawa knows of Otakawa speaking to people in his home when nobody is there, as you said, Rob, which I think is sus, because how does she actually know that? I don't actually recall him saying that to her. So where Goriki says he might actually have an imaginary friend, as you also said, Rob. So Goriki says Otakawa's been alone since his parents abandoned him as a child, likely adding a large degree of stress over his lifetime that even he doesn't realize. But again, to me, it's that car crash. Like, that's the real triggering incident, in my opinion. But there's still clearly way more we don't know about his past, because I do think he does have those skeletons in the closet that's adding to his trauma. And I do think that's very related to the Nerima girl. So Shirakawa asks when they met and says it was about 3 years ago. So asking Goriki in his taxi as he was listening to Homo sapiens, as he often does. So in this flashback, Otakawa asks Goriki how old he was. Goriki says 38. So at that time, same age as Otakawa. They get into a discussion about manners and socioeconomic differences. Otakawa knows this, and he says, of course, doctors speak differently from the rest of us. This clearly gets to Goriki, and then he says he's psychic and that he can see souls. And Goriki is amused by what he's saying. He says, what is my soul telling you right now? And Otakawa says, don't turn, head straight ahead, as Otakawa literally turns right at that moment, surprising him. And it ended up being a shortcut to where Goriki wanted to go. So from there, it's history. We know they become
I gotta
friends.
say,
Yeah.
am forever in love with Otakawa's, sardonic sense of humor.
Yeah.
It just tickles my fancies.
So he's hard-boiled. He's kind of an ass, but I would never straight up call him an asshole.
Would you say that he's komoi?
He's too genuine. He's too genuine to be hateable. He's a curmudgeon, but everything he says comes from his heart. Is
exactly it's not. There's no insidious nature to his little jabs.
No, he in fact lays himself bare, even if he is kind of cynical and kind of a hard ass about it. Again, this is one of the other reasons I love Otakawa. He's a truly genuine person. to those he opens himself up to in any meaningful way. But again, he clearly has his demons, and I really want to see going ahead what those are. So moving on. So next, Goriki offers Shirakawa to join him and Odokawa at Yamabiko Izakaya for a drink, but she believes Odokawa would leave if he came. Correctly, I assume. So next, Odokawa and Goriki finally meet and drink at Yamabiko's. Yamabiko reveals she got an autograph from the legendary Don Raku on the wall, and how he was complaining about modern comedy and why judging comedy in a comedy contest doesn't benefit him in any way. So to those who may have forgotten, Don Raku is this background character we keep hearing about, the baboon character, the one that we saw the eraser of, and the one who seems to also be one of the Yakuza heads manipulating everything. Everything comes back to Don Raku. So I can't wait to see where this goes and when we're finally introduced to Don Raku. But we know he's a baboon, and we now know that he's one of the judges at the N1 Comedy Festival. So before I move on this scene anymore, what do you guys think of this potential
Let's
setup?
Also not forget, the most exposure we've had to Don Raku at this point is when he's spilling his guts, like in the presence of Kakihana, when he was on what he thought was a private phone call.
That wasn't Don Raku. I can't remember his name, but that was I think he was like anteater.
No, you're right.
No, he refers to Don Raku as Don-chan.
That's it.
So either he's a subordinate of Don Raku, or he's like a rival or someone of a similar station to Don Raku. But all we know is Don Raku's near the top of this local Yakuza ring. So next, Goriki shows the picture again to Odokawa of Kakihana from the back, and Odokawa says, well, that's clearly Kakihana. Next, he shows him a text, which is a picture of a bird, and he says, well, that's clearly a bird. And then a blindfolded Shirakawa, and he says, well, that's clearly blindfolded Shirakawa. And he can clearly and easily distinguish between these pictures, and asking what the hell Goriki's been up to with Shirakawa because she's blindfolded in the photograph. I liked how Yamabiko is like, this is scandalous. Like, what the hell are you doing here? But no, so Goriki attempts to call Kakihana as he wants him to join, but we can see he's clearly unconscious against a warehouse post. And next we see, in a separate scene, Yamamoto revealing the bad news to Sekiguchi, the tracksuit guy, about the 900 million for the dashcam footage, and Sekiguchi agrees that he's getting gouged at that price. Yamamoto again agrees, but says they need to get that dashcam data soon. There's a clear urgency to getting this. They're feeling this pressure as much as we saw it with Dobu in the prior episodes before he actually had the dashcam footage. So this is where we see Yamamoto actually reveal actual anxieties and insecurities about the situation, and is told to quit whining by Sekiguchi as he kicks the chair from under him and says he needs to make them more money with Mystery Kiss. But then Yamamoto brings up the lottery winner as a potential source of that money, to make up for this situation. So Sekiguchi says robbing the fan would be more profitable, but Yamamoto counters that it wouldn't help Mystery Kiss get bigger because he acknowledges Imai, the lottery winner, as a potential powerful source of income and good PR for them, I guess, because he's their super fan. Simply robbing him would not look good for them, I guess. So Yano sees through this as a ploy from Dobu, believes he's manipulating them into robbing the fan for a free win. So the two scenarios is pay Odokawa the 900 million with stolen winnings, or Dobu robbing the fan for himself. So he says, just play along with it for now and see where the winds takes us. So he wants to keep Kakihana as a sacrificial pawn and has Kakihana call his mom on the phone to give him a final goodbye as he holds in laughter when he brings up, well, I was going to get married, but then that situation plays out. I dropped a shit ton of information right there. What do you guys think?
Ouch. My soul. For Kaki, man, like that entire scene, especially when it Yano's face kind of bubbled up and his lips perked out while he was trying to hold in laughter when Kaki was essentially saying his last goodbye to his mom. Like, god damn.
Like, if everything
that was hard.
If everything was a kick in the gut, this is a kick to the nuts.
Yeah.
Like, this is spitting on the defiled grave of a man who has basically lost everything and all hope.
Yeah, to Yano, Kakihana's just trash. Literal trash. So, but yeah, no, I mean, it's rough. I mean, I don't have a lot more to say regarding Kakihana's situation. I do feel bad for him, but I also just feel like, goddamn, dude, you're almost too stupid to live.
Well, I mean, he's responsible for the events leading up to this moment. It doesn't make it hurt any less.
Yeah, I know. I guess I'm being a bit harsh there, but man, he just literally makes all the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
No, but I do want things to be good for him in the end, and I hope they are. I hope Odokawa can find a way to save him. So next, we see Kabasawa releasing footage of Dobu beating the man with the broom from the prior episode. He reveals that he thinks that there's a traitor among his fans, though, as in the video he can hear Odokawa's voice saying, there's Kabasawa. So he offers 1 million yen to whoever offers up the traitor, because I don't think he actually saw Odokawa in the video footage, or he actually recognized Odokawa as being Odokawa. So next, Shibagaki is taking out the trash at his cabaret job, and then checks the N1 Grand Prix semi-finalist results and found that, hey, what do you know? The Homo sapiens made it. So they're going on the semifinals. And I can't help but believe that probably the penultimate, or maybe the final major set piece of this show is going to be the N1 Grand Prix, because I'm seeing that.
Oh, it has to be.
All these major parties are converging.
Yeah, this is going to be like the convergence of all of these different parties.
The only other major set piece I see happening is the bank robbery. So maybe they'll converge at some point, but yeah, definitely the big one is going to be the N1 Grand Prix.
Okay, so real quick, I do kind of want to interject about that bank robbery thing.
Yeah.
Is that we've got prior knowledge that Dobu was previously arrested for bank robbery. And, okay, so Sean, maybe you can fill me in on this, but that's a federal crime here in the U.S., and that's not something that you're going to get out of. Like, if you robbed the bank at 18, you're not going to get out of that at your mid 30s. That's a federal crime. That's a long sentence.
Yeah.
And I know that Japan is super strict with their crime rates and everything like that. And if he robbed the bank, he probably had some sort of firearm.
Japan is actually one of the only countries in the developed world I would actually say is worse than the U.S. when it comes to its prison system. Japan's brutal in that regard. Not only in its prisons, but also in its sentencing. So
how has he previously robbed a bank and been imprisoned for it and is now out?
That's a great point. I forgot that detail. It must have been from episode 1 or 2 when Yamabiko's, I remember she made a spiel about Dobu and describing his history. I forgot.
No. This was a recent episode. This was episode 7 or 8.
With Rob, with this in particular, I think this is hinted that this is just collusion with the older Diamond brother.
That's what I'm starting to think too.
Yeah, because he clearly has collusion with Dobu.
Right, it's collusion with the Yakuza.
Well, yeah.
And the law enforcement, so maybe lighten the sentence or something like that. But at that point, they would have to have a judge in the pocket, right? Shit.
Perhaps. But yeah, moving on though, and kind of getting to what we were talking about a bit, Dobu and Otokawa discuss when I say his, I mean Dobu's apartment, about the 900 million trade, and Dobu concludes that Yamamoto is working for Yano finally. Otokawa asks about the footage and if the boss's daughter is on it, because as we remember in episode 1 or 2, older Diamond actually took the footage and gave it to Dobu. So Dobu has that footage. And Dobu says he doesn't know which passenger he needs to be looking for in all that footage, because I believe it's 2 weeks of footage, and he can't tell the boss anyways. So he says his next plan is to rob a bank. So that's out on the table finally. Shirakawa told it to Otokawa, but this is the first time Dobu's telling Otokawa. So he doesn't believe Otokawa knows that this is coming, or allegedly anyways. So Otokawa starts recording this now because he knows this is what he needs to implicate Dobu in a court of law. So he starts recording it and he pockets his phone. Dobu states his intention to have Otokawa be his getaway driver, as Shirakawa earlier mentioned, and states that he knows about the 1 billion large withdrawal coming due to Imai's social media posts and has bribed a bank employee on when the transaction is happening. So he knows that Yano's probably after him as well, is taking more direct route to getting the money, as he's sure Yano will force Imai to withdraw the money and give it to them. So again, Dobu's utilizing his more direct method to counter Yano's more roundabout method, hoping that this will just kind of cut to the chase, cut him off at the knees, and he'll just make out with the money while the transaction's happening at the bank. So Dobu, after being questioned a lot by Otokawa, he says, "You've been asking some very thoughtful and expository questions, almost like you want to implicate me." He just says it straight up. But then Otokawa, completely straight-faced, he just sells it. Says, I'm getting myself into a shit sandwich here. I need to know what's going on. So Dobu buys it. He brings up Otokawa's missing friend, referring to Kakihana. Otokawa says he wants to find him and is worried about him because he knows something's up now. And Dobu says to be ready at any moment to be on the move. Before we get to the final scene, what do you guys think of this interaction?
Rob, I like your clear, subtle achoo camera click.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe he got away with, and he as in Otokawa got away with taking a picture and recording that.
Yeah, and he even got the picture of him getting a beer from the fridge.
I mean, we already kind of got this character archetype with Dobu, knowing that he was kind of like a dumb bruiser, but goddamn, he must be really dumb.
I don't think he's actually dumb. It's more that he just underestimates those around him. There's a solid, his plan is solid, but again, he is underestimating Otokawa to the nth degree here. He thinks he has his number, and he thinks he's being clever with Yano, but as we've seen, Yano knows exactly what's happening. He's always 2 steps ahead. So really, the big conflict between Dobu, Otokawa, and Yano is really going to be down between Otokawa and Yano. Because it's not just a war between Otokawa and Dobu. Really, it's a war between Otokawa against both Dobu and Yano. And in the end, any win for Otokawa is going to be how he pits those two against each other to make them blind to what he wants to truly accomplish.
Right now, the most important resource is information, and like you said, anything that can pit them in a court of law or something to implicate the involved parties of what's going on.
Exactly. And really, though, the biggest obstacles to Otokawa, again, I said Yano, and I think Yano will be a very imposing force on Otokawa, but the true wild cards that could throw a wrench into everything, again, are Tanaka, who could be anywhere at any moment, who could kill anyone at any moment, and Don Raku. Don Raku is, at this point, still a great unknown to the plot. However, there is a sleeper among this cast, and I think that one is going to be Shirakawa, because I think it's easy to fall under the assumption that, she's truly fallen for Otokawa, but I don't know if I completely buy into that.
No, I don't.
She's in the perfect position to play everyone.
Well, and we've already seen how she's played Tanaka, right?
Yep, I was going to bring up the Gotcha episode.
So, no, please explain that to me, because that's not immediately apparent to me.
So
with the eraser. The eraser. Yes.
Yep.
Got it.
We already know that she's a fucking cutthroat.
And we know she has ties with Don Raku himself.
Yes, true. Maybe she's even his right hand.
Maybe.
Or maybe
it is implied they have a connection.
Yes. No, that's a great point. Oh man, I can't wait to watch the final stretch. Okay.
So many moving parts.
But we're already woefully behind. We've already gone way over the time limit. So moving on to the final scene, we see Imai answering his phone with Otokawa telling him to get off work as he's coming to pick him up. And Otokawa uploads his conversation with Dobu to Little Diamond as he next tries to get a hold of Kakihana. Of course, to failure. So, to the outro theme, Otokawa has a conversation with Imai about the lotto winnings, telling him to hold on to the ticket a bit longer, saying that gangsters are after his money. He instructs Imai to change residences and lay low for a little while, and asks him to edit and re-upload the picture of his winning lotto ticket online, saying he didn't actually win, that you just wanted to show off, pretend you're a pitiful idiot. And then the final bombshell, I guess, at least for Otokawa, is Imai says, "My spring's finally on the horizon," or at least he said it, or something to the effect, or like, "I thought my spring was right on the horizon." And then Otokawa
you're right.
And then he says, "Say that again." And that's where the memory connects of Kakihana when he first matched with Ichimura, saying, "My spring's just on the horizon." And that's when he finally realized, oh wait, that's where I saw that calico cat. That's where I saw Ichimura before. He matched with Kakihana. It all connects to him. He now realizes, oh shit, my friend's in deep shit. Because Ichimura is connected to Yamamoto, who is connected to Yano. So,
yep.
Yeah, and I believe his last line of the episode is, "She's a calico cat." Oh man, that was a lot. This
that was a
going
loaded
to be
ending sequence.
Yeah, this is going to be our longest episode. It's breaking some rules, but I'll allow it because I feel it's needed for this show and this episode in particular. Going off that, what are you guys' final thoughts on this episode and these stretch of episodes in general? Any predictions going forward?
You go, Rob.
Yeah, so this final episode, at least for me, was such a great connection because you get to see Otokawa not only play. Otokawa's playing 4D chess.
I feel like several characters are, to be honest, in this show.
But we get to see the point where he's finally starting to connect some dots here.
Yeah.
Knows that Yano is probably involved with Mystery Kiss, and then finally knows that Shiho played his friend, and is shit.
Yeah.
He wasn't he obviously was not calculating for that, right?
Well,
also,
how could he? Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, can we also appreciate how effective a plan Otokawa had to save Imai from getting involved with the Yakuza and the people trying to go after his lottery? He has the perfect response.
No other show
use the internet against the gangsters.
Yes, I can confidently say no other show would have the chops to even have already, this show its writing has exhibited the layers and lengths it's willing to go to write this compelling but Byzantine story where everyone is affecting everyone all at the same time. But
there is no wasted space, no wasted characters. Everyone is busy in some secret, in some plot or scheme somewhere in the shadow.
But what I love about it is every character is being true to themselves and affecting just about every character in what I would consider to be an organic way, but none of it feels contrived or unearned. It's oh yeah, this is how all these characters would react to this situation. This is how it would affect all these other characters.
There's no assholes. There's no plot armor.
No, the dominoes keep falling. And
exactly.
The dominoes fall everywhere, but none of it feels like, oh, wait, like that just came out of completely left field. No, like I never feel that. Like it all feels like
very well thought out in advance.
Yes. But, oh, man, I want to say so much more, but we got to end it there. Before I do, though, I have to give the floor to you guys, though. Any predictions going forward, just that you want to put on the table before I end this?
I'll give my 2 cents. So, obviously, I 100% agree. I think Don Raku is going to play a very important role leading into the climax of, this, like, the ending of this series. He has a hand in so many events that are going on, and I think like we're gonna get our socks blown off by finding out where Shirakawa's alliances, like where her loyalty lies. And finally, Otokawa. We've got more information about him. We're having some dots connected here. We're waiting for that final straw to break the back of what's really going on in his head, and seeing the world around him other than the perspective we've been given.
So I kind of agree. I really want to see where Shirakawa's allegiances lie with, and I'm on board with Zach's, observations regarding her, but I also could really gel on board with a complete tonal shift in the animation where Otokawa maybe realizes that what he's seeing is his hallucinations, and we just get a completely different shift into the human, right? That would be such a tonal shift that it would be so jarring, and I wouldn't even say that it would be bad, but it would just be fuck.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you, Zach. I think Don Raku is going to play a pivotal role. I think Shirakawa is way more than meets the eye. And I think Otokawa in the end is going to make me fucking cry because I know his backstory is going to be horribly depressing.
So much to look forward to.
Yeah, these are going to... this episode we're doing right now is this long. I can only imagine how long our final for Odd Taxi.
Gosh, I don't know how we're gonna do it.
All right, but with that, we are thoroughly out of time. Even though I should have said that a long time ago. So to wrap things up, be sure to tune in next week for our discussion on episodes 9 through 13 of Nomad Megalobox 2. Feel free to give us a follow on our Twitter at 444pod, all 4's numerical, to receive any news or updates regarding the podcast. You can also feel free to email us at 444podc@gmail.com. Again, that's all 4's numerical, pod, letter C @gmail.com, with any questions you would like featured on future episodes. If you like what we're doing with the podcast, we would love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, maybe give a review on your platform of choice, as this really helps us gain further traction and visibility. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you all have a great week, and join us next time as we discuss the final round of episodes for Nomad Megalobox 2. Have a good one, everyone.
Later.
Hasta luego.